Well, hello, boys and girls. It's Mrs. Coli. I hope you're having a great day today. I sure am. Today, I wanted to spend some time with you teaching you a very, very important reading skill and a great comprehension skill, too. And as you can see, it's called decoding skills. Maybe you know what decoding skills is. Maybe you don't. Well, in order to understand what decoding is, we know that it has something to do with reading. As you can see, our little friend here, Professor Puppy, he is going to help us understand what to do to be great decoders. And decoding, if we take the D off and we leave the word code, all it is it's teaching us how to make sense out of the combination of letters that we see in words. So we're going to learn this code system today and be able to apply it in our hard text that we read at school, or when we go to the public library and we want to check out a book that is a little bit hard, that we have the skill set that we can take it and read it and enjoy it and make sense from it. Oh my, this little puppy here doesn't look quite as confident as our Professor Puppy, our word detective friend. You can tell that he is not quite ready to go to the library and check out books with advanced complex text, is he? He's a little unsure of himself, and maybe you relate to this feeling. Maybe you don't always feel comfortable when your teacher asks you to read text that she'd like you or that he'd like you to read, and that's okay. I just hope, though, through this lesson that you'll be able to see that you've got this. You can do this. You can be a great decoder and develop these word detective skills that are needed to have that confidence. And then through practice makes perfect, you will be a graduate word detective. And you'll be able to feel confident in reading harder text and actually understanding what those words mean in that text too. So that is our goal today. I want everybody to feel as happy and as confident as this cute little pooch right here, our little graduate, Gertrude the Graduate. She's proud of you too. She knows you can do it just like she can. Okay, well, in order to be a word detective, let's go back and talk about what skills you need to learn to be successful as a word detective. So the first thing we need to know is that we need to know that when we get to a hard word, we always stop, and we need to break it apart into little chunks. And those little chunks are called morphemes. Say that with me, morphemes. And some of the morphemes that I've taught you about are called prefixes, root words or base words, or suffixes. And just know that our prefixes and suffixes they have a special term, and they're called affixes. Can you say that with me? Affixes. Nice job. And if you're talking about an affixes, it's just the parts that go before and after that base or root word. So far, so good. Thumbs up. We got it. Nice job, everybody. You're doing super. Okay, so let's just do a quick review over what I've taught you in the past. Before, we talked about what our prefixes were. You probably remember these. And we also talked about our suffixes, and you probably remember these. This is the code system that I was talking about. So if a word has like reread, remember you would take and break it apart and say the base word by itself, read, and then you're going to say what the code is for the read part. Read again. So you're going to read something again, and that's our code system that we use as a word detective. You remember how to do that? Nice. Let's move on then. Okay, this is a little game that I encourage you to play to develop your word detective skills. This will help you with your writing skills, believe it or not, and it will help you to grow your reading skills, grow your vocabulary, and that ability to look at words and recall words quickly, because you're not going to have to stop and sound them out because you've practiced working with a lot of different words. So, this is probably a first grade word, you learned that B-A-K-E, what's the code for that? It's bake, right? Those letters together make the word bake. And so your job now would be to take the word bake and add prefixes and suffixes on and see how many words you can make just from that base word of bake. So you can see in this case, they added the ed ending, so baked. They added the s on the end, which is the suffix s, bakes. And then they did the adjective, the comparative adjective, the baker with the er. And then they used a prefix, unbaked, and they used the y, which is a type of suffix, which makes the verb turn into a noun, bakery. And then they also use the ing, baking. So this is really fun to do with verbs. So I would encourage you to have somebody tell you a verb and see how many different words can you come up with just with that one verb. Okay, and it says as a word detective, you can play word games. Just start with a base word, which is called a free morpheme, and add prefixes and suffix to it. You got this. I know you can do it. Let's try another skill. Okay, so another way to be a word detective is to understand our Greek and Latin roots. Again, Greek and Latin are different languages that combined with our English language. Our English language developed in about the 5th and the 6th century, and it was actually called the anglo-saxon Old English. And there were priests that came and they taught the people there some Latin. And so that's how, I guess some Greek too, that's how we have this part of our Anglo-Saxon Old English, which is now no longer existing. It's now called English. And we lost a lot of that old language. There's only 4,500 words left from our old language. But boys and girls, it's important for us to be very much aware of our English language. And part of that is just understanding, okay, I don't speak Greek, I don't speak Latin, but I'm going to start to grow that part of my language and develop better skills at understanding and being able to make sense out of these hard words by understanding the Greek and the Latin roots. Okay? We practiced this already. We learned that bio means life, and these are the words with the endings, those morphemes that we've been learning about that you could put on prefixes and suffixes. Here's auto, and it means self. And again, these are the different words that you can form from using auto. And again, in order to be a good word detective, we do need to start to develop an understanding for our Latin and Greek root words. And you can do that, I'm sure, through your teacher's help. I know you can do it. Okay, then with text, just know that as you are given text, you're going to want to stop when you get to a hard word. Maybe you don't know what thunderous means. And so then you would say, okay, what's the base word? Thunder. Do I know what thunder means? Yeah, lightning and thunder. Okay, it's the sound that happens when the electricity from the lightning strikes. You have that thunderous sound. And so I guess something with, by the way, this is a story about a meteorite that actually hits Earth in Russia. Can you believe that? And that's what it looks like. That's what the people saw before it actually collided with Earth. And it ended up, thank goodness, hitting this pond. But 1,500 people were injured as a result of this. And in the story, it talks about that they heard thunderous bangs echo as an invisible shockwaves shake. And this is a place in Russia that's kind of hard to read. It's called Chelyabinsk. Can you say that with me? Chelyabinsk. That's in Russia. So we don't have time to read this story together right now, but just know if you are truly a word detective, you would be on the lookout for words that you don't know, and you're going to want to break them apart and look for base words, look for prefixes and suffixes that you do know to make sense. And then you're going to start to want to grow your Greek and your Latin roots. You want to grow knowledge about those Greek and Latin roots so that you are almost like learning a new language in a sense. In order to learn a new language, you have to learn all their vocabulary. So you're learning their vocabulary. And then you'll be able to, as you get older, see those chunks, those roots in bigger size words too. And you'll say, oh yeah, I remember learning that when I was in 4th grade or 3rd grade or 2nd grade, if your teacher starts to introduce these things to you. Okay, so one of the things that it talks about is the word atmosphere. And atmosphere is actually a Greek word. You can see here, I give you some advice. Remember to break words apart into smaller size parts and then decode what each of the parts means. The word atmosphere is a Greek word. And you would break it apart into atmos, which means vapor, and sphere, which means a ball. So the word actually means a set of layers of gases surrounding a planet that's held in place with gravity. So that's what it really means. But you can see if you take those Greek origins of the words and you understand what they mean, you can kind of put the puzzle pieces together and figure out what it means in the text. Some other things that have Greek or Latin origins would be the word asteroid and comets and meteorites. And so I wanted to look these up for you. Asteroid in Greek means starlight. Comets mean first from Latin, and then from Greek it means stars with hair. And there was a great scientist and a great philosopher by the name of Aristotle, and he's the one that actually came up with the word comets. And so it took a while. It went through 3 different forms of a word, and it's not really common. It's kind of the Greek form and the Latin form. It's a little bit different language. And so through time, it just evolved to comets. But Aristotle was in charge of that whole process. That's really cool. And then we have, what is a meteor? In Greek, it means thing high up. Great. Well, this article is fantastic to read, but the purpose today is to not read this article. It's just to show you when and how you would take these challenging words and try to break them apart into smaller size parts in order to make sense of that. I know you can do this, and I hope that you are going to take my challenge and you're going to start to become that word detective and be a graduate like Gertrude the Graduate, and you'll each be a graduate of the Word Detective School by practicing and starting just with verbs and seeing how many different prefixes and suffixes you can add onto it, and then start to learn some of the Greek and Latin roots from your teacher. And then thirdly, start to open up some text that's a little bit challenging and see if you can make sense out of it by breaking those words apart into smaller sized chunks. I know you can do this. You're awesome. And I'm so glad that I had the chance to meet with you today and that we were able to talk about the importance of decoding words into smaller size parts called morphemes, and that you now know the skills that you need in order to become that great word detective and be able to go to the public library, choose whatever book you want, just about, and open it up and understand what you're reading, because that's truly when reading is fun. It's great to learn how to read, but it's even better to read for learning and for knowledge. Boys and girls, I hope you have a great day today. Keep on smiling and keep on reading. Until next time, bye-bye.